Since 2015, Jared Stillman has rocked Nashville sports.
That team freaking stinks.
And now he's back. The takes are hotter than ever.
I mean, let's be honest, he just can't coach.
Welcome to Stillman and Company.
Stillman and Company on the 440 Sports Network, presented by Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. What are we going to talk about today? Okay, so, and I got to tell you, today, when I got in the car, I turned on local radio, and I heard no Mike Vrabel Dianna Russini talk, and I could not believe it. I actually pulled up the podcast page of Ramon and Will because I figured, I knew those two guys weren't going to talk about Vrabel and Dianna. And, of course, it was like, going over day 3 draft prospects. I'm like, okay. I know Joe Rexrode's not going to talk about it because Joe Rexrode was busy calling me a sleuth all last night for putting out a video in reaction to Vrabel and Russini. And I did hear Buck, let callers talk about it. But I'm thinking to myself, this is the biggest story in town. Vrabel and Russini, after all the stories that have been talked about when it came to Vrabel and Russini, where Dianna Russini reports, Dianna Russini says that Rand Carthon and Mike Vrabel get along perfectly. Dianna Russini says, Dianna Russini, and I'm like, you're not going to talk about Dianna Russini? Oh, my God. So we're going to get into it. And that's what today's show is going to be about. If you want me to break down the draft today, it ain't happening. Listen to one of our other 19,000 draft shows we've done already. First, though, let's talk about our presenting sponsor, Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. Here on the program, they take great care of my home. They can do the exact same for you. Let Hiller take great care of your home like they take care of mine. They've been in business since 1990, family owned and operated with 100% satisfaction. If happy, you'll be, the service is free. If a customer is not pleased with the work performed, Hiller makes it right. Learn more by visiting happyhiller.com. They've got true transparency pricing, which means that Hiller will line item every part of the job up front so there are no surprises in the end. That's Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, Electrical, proud supporters of the Preds, the Falls, and Vandy. That's Hiller. Call the Happy Face Truck today. Okay, let's get to Vrabelgate, which is what we are going to call it. So, last night, the bombshell heard around the world, especially in Nashville and New England, and apparently in Philadelphia. Big news in Philadelphia, and apparently Jets fans. Now, somehow, the other half of New York seemed to not really care, but the Jets fans, they were all in because I guess the Eagle fans and Jets fans hate Dianna Russini. Mike Vrabel and Dianna Russini were spotted at a boutique Arizona adults-only resort the weekend before the NFL owners' meetings. Now, this adults-only resort is in the mountains of Arizona, not Phoenix, where the owners' meetings are being held. This resort was 2 hours away. And I was listening to Boston radio today where they actually did talk about it. And they were saying that this boutique Arizona resort is a couples resort where they brag on their website about honeymoons, engagements, anniversaries. Come on and celebrate with us. And that's where Vrabel and Dianna were, 2 hours away, hugging, laying poolside, interlocking fingers. As I say, if it looks like a duck, and it sure looked like a duck. Vrabel and Russini and The Athletic all released statements. According to Vrabel, he says, quote, "These photos show a completely innocent interaction, and any suggestion otherwise is laughable. This doesn't deserve any further response." Russini, quote, "The photos don't represent the group of 6 people who were hanging out during the day. Like most journalists in the NFL, reporters interact with sources away from stadiums and other venues." Do they do it 2 hours away at a romantic adults-only resort? The Athletic. And this is Steven Ginsberg, the executive editor of The Athletic. Quote, "These photos are misleading and lack essential context. These were public interactions in front of many people. Dianna is a premier journalist covering the NFL, and we're proud to have her at The Athletic." Uh-huh. By the way, all I wanted to hear, and this is AI, this is not Vrabel's voice, but all I wanted to hear in a statement from Vrabel was this.
"I did not have sexual relations with that woman, Miss Russini."
That's all I wanted to hear. That's it. That's all. Again, that's pretty much what Vrabel said. Now, as you're probably well aware, I have many thoughts on this today on the program. And last night, I released a video detailing 3 minutes worth of those thoughts in which I showed text messages from over 4 years ago in which I was saying, hey, I think these two are boinking. I can't prove it, and I'm not going to publicly speculate it, but I was telling people, I think these two are doing it. March 22nd is more than 4 years ago where I felt that way. And at one point, I was told that they were going to be at the same Super Bowl party I was going to be at. So I get to a Super Bowl party. This is the Arizona Super Bowl. So this is 2022 season, 2023 Chiefs Eagles Part 1. And I'm at a Super Bowl party. And somebody at the party says, hey, Vrabel will be here later. And I was like, really? And they say, yeah, I talked to Dianna Russini, and she said her and Vrabel were coming later. And I thought, oh, shit. And I will tell you this, because I thought about this in that moment. I'm like, if Vrabel and Dianna Russini see me in person at this Super Bowl party, now I ended up not seeing them. I don't even know if they went. If they end up seeing me at this Super Bowl party, and Vrabel and I used to run into each other all the time because we kind of lived in the same part of town. But if we see each other here, and it was always, hey, whatever. But if we see each other here, and he's with Dianna Russini, I'm going up to both of them. And I am telling them, you've got 24 hours to get your story straight. Like I just tell you right now, that was if I saw them, I would have gone up to them. I was prepared to go up to them. And to say, you've got 24 hours to get your story straight, which it sounds like is what the Post told them. And that's the best they could come up with. Oh yeah, we were just hanging out with our friends. Yeah, it sure looks like it. There was one photo that was taken where they were hugging on each other with the mountains in the background. And I mean, damn, I've never done something like that with somebody that I wasn't with. And I'm just going to be honest, which I'm not sure everybody else is being. There are a lot of people who cover the team, the Titans that is, that if you said, hey, did you think Vrabel and Russini were doing it? They'd say yes. I mean, I'll throw Caroline out there because I feel like she won't get mad at me saying her. But, I mean, Caroline and I have talked about this for years about Vrabel and Russini. And there are a lot of other media members who cover the Titans. I'm not going to say it was a total running joke, but it was close to it. About, why did Dianna get that scoop? For me, the moment of truth, and I played this in the video yesterday, but this was the moment that I knew Dianna was in the satchel for Vrabel. Again, that's what led me to my first text 4 years ago when I said, I think Vrabel is banging Dianna Russini from ESPN, but I can't speculate it publicly. And if you look on the stream, it has the Bart Scott cut. Why the Titans not in the top 5? Again, I used to cut my own audio. I saw this on TV, and this is when I knew Dianna was in the bag for Vrabel. Let's play the audio, and I will explain how I knew from this that Dianna was in the bag for Vrabel.
So last I checked, too, Derrick Henry still plays in Tennessee, and they were the #1 team in the AFC without him when he was playing.
That's true.
How do you miss the Tennessee Titans in here?
Have you seen Ryan Tannehill, who now is going to have
consistency? Has Mike Vrabel had a losing season yet? No.
I think what we've learned
Has
here.
he figured out how to make that team really good when their roster isn't even that exceptional?
Has he figured out a way to make that team good when that roster's not even very good? And at the time when it came to the Titans, if you were getting info from the Titans, there were two places you were getting it from. John Robinson, the general manager, Mike Vrabel, the coach. So if Dianna Russini is going to say that the rosters weren't very good, but Mike Vrabel coached them up, I don't think it's coming from J-Rob. So that was the moment that in my head, I'm like, Vrabel's the source. And when it came to Vrabel being the source, I think there was a lot of talk about how, Vrabel and Dianna, man, they're very friendly together. And I just want to say this at the very beginning. This is not a woman thing where it is a woman insider has a source who happens to be a guy, and now the assumption is that they're sleeping together. That's not the case. What Dianna did to women sports reporters and women journalists and women in the media, I think, and I'm not a woman to defend here, but I think it is inexcusable how much Dianna hurt the credibility and reputation of every single other woman covering sports with her actions. So don't put this on me. This was my investigative hat. Again, my curiosity, following the breadcrumbs, and when this came out yesterday, I had somebody in the local media text me, the first person that texted me this story, that just said, enjoy, because they knew, oh man, Jared, he's been talking about this for years. He's going to go nuclear. So let's get into this. And I want to hit this from every single angle. And that is if we can just make the assumption that they're having an affair. Because I know, again, they say they're not. Look at the pictures. I look at the context. The resort was 2 hours away from the owners' meetings. Well, why would you go 2 hours away? Phoenix is a really, really nice area. In fact, true story. Caroline's wedding this weekend in Phoenix. Lindsay and I are staying 3 extra days, and we are going to an incredibly nice resort. Not 2 hours away. 2 hours away. Adults only. Romantic getaway. That's what you do when you're having an affair. So maybe they're not. Just throw that out there so I don't get sued. But for the rest of the show, I feel like we should operate under the assumption that they are, in fact, doing it. So number one, the first topic. Should we be talking about this? Look, I'm really big on keeping discussions about business and not personal life, not kids, again, I try to keep this about business. So I say yes, because to me, this is about business. Some people will say no. I guess some people think whatever you do with your pee-pee is your personal life. I don't. I don't think Bobby Petrino hiring his mistress, crashing a motorcycle, lying to the athletic director and lying to the press about it, I don't think that's personal, because Bobby Petrino made it about business. If it was just an affair with some random woman who was not a celebrity and not in the game and not a part of it, then okay. Guys have affairs all the time. Guys cheat on their wives. I don't do it, but guys do. But this isn't a personal relationship. This is a business relationship. When Dianna Russini is reporting about a potential A.J. Brown trade, or when Dianna Russini is reporting about Mike Vrabel's job status as the head coach of the Tennessee Titans, or whatever it may be, that's our business. What's my business? They cover the Tennessee Titans. So when you're putting a story out there about the Tennessee Titans and the credibility of the person sharing the story is in question, that now is part of the discussion. And when you enter the world of the National Football League, whether it is as a talk show host, whether it is as an official, as a commissioner, as a coach, as a player, as a reporter, that's what you sign up for. If you are an NFL referee and you're in the hole on a gambling debt by $500,000 and you're calling the AFC Championship game, and all of a sudden there's one call you make that is line changing, is that personal? I mean, that's your personal gambling debt. But you're afraid of getting your knees broken. You call pass interference. All of a sudden, Denver ends up covering. Now that's business. You made it people's business. And the other thing everyone's got to understand is when you're famous, there's a lot of great things about being a public figure. Life is a two-way street. Vrabel and Dianna make a ton of money. Vrabel and Dianna get hookups where they go places. People take selfies with them. Their egos are always boosted. They get VIP access. There's a downside to that, which is it's harder to have an affair. If you're Tiger Woods and you get a DUI, everybody in the country knows. If you're some random schmo, no one knows and no one cares. So Vrabel allegedly having an affair with a colleague is incredibly unethical for both Vrabel and Russini, probably more so Russini than it is Vrabel. But because that colleague is in the same arena, I think it is fair game for discussion. So when Dianna Russini wrote that story about Mike Vrabel's job security on Thanksgiving of 2023, and it was the Titans will never fire Vrabel, and Vrabel's so great. And, well, did she put that out there because the Titans had cultivated a relationship with Dianna, or was she putting that out there because that was her boy toy? And again, I didn't ask that question because there isn't information to make me think it. There's pictures of them cuddling at an adults-only romantic resort. So let's get that out of the way first. Number 2, is this bad, as in worse than a typical affair, which is usually people's business? Is this worse than the typical affair? Because, well, that's their business versus our business. And I believe that once you take something to work, you've now made the personal affair a work issue. Is it, again, Bobby Petrino hiring his mistress and paying her with state funds from the football program? No. But now everything Dianna has reported is completely and totally tainted with the idea that she's in the sheets with one of her sources. And I'm sorry, but this isn't the first time Dianna has been involved in something like this. Considering that a decade ago, the wife of the general manager of the then Washington Redskins was calling her out on Twitter. There is a reputation that Dianna has had, fairly or unfairly. I have no idea. I wasn't in Washington, but I guess it was enough for Scott McLuhan's wife to jump on Twitter and start calling out Dianna for trading favors for sourcing. So again, like I understand that, hey, this sucks. I mean, I would hate it if there were all these shows sitting there talking about me and what did Jared do? And did Jared say that? And did Jared, and think about Jared's family and think about, but in the end, if I did something like that, it would be my own doing. And that's what Dianna's done. And I just, again, some people have said to me, why is it such a big deal? Even Lindsay last night, she was like, why is it such a big deal? She works in the music industry. She goes, artists date industry people. It happens. It's not. I said, because when you are covering somebody, especially when you are a reporter, I would say even an opinionist like me, I'm fine, by the way, with people having a relationship if they work together, if it's above board. So if I had a relationship with somebody I covered or somebody that worked with one of the teams, I would make that public so that everybody would know my preconceived biases. But when it comes to this, I mean, this is high-level stuff. And Dianna Russini, an example of this is Dianna Russini put out there that Max Crosby wants to play for Mike Vrabel. Well, is that true? Or was she doing that to try to drum up, hey, Max Crosby, you know, maybe this is something Vrabel wanted her to put up. We don't know. And that's an issue. So I guess it's my long-winded way of saying I have sympathy, but not enough to where it undoes what they did. I don't have enough sympathy to ignore it. It's their personal lives and they have families, and maybe they should have thought of that before they started canoodling at the adults-only resort 2 hours away from where they were supposed to be. Now, what is this going to do to their careers? This is the sad part, at least as far as I'm concerned, because the answer is different for Vrabel than it is for Dianna. For Vrabel, it means nothing. I'm not going to say that Robert Kraft and Jonathan Kraft won't care, because I'm sure they're pissed that this is a story and people are asking, and that, again, people look at them and it's like, yeah, Vrabel getting it in, buddy, because that's embarrassing. And there is a work element to this. And I'm sure there is a disappointment level, even from Kraft, a disappointment level of, dude, you're leading our team and you're preaching accountability, which you know that's Vrabel's thing. And here you are off 2 hours away. But as far as Vrabel's standing as the coach of the New England Patriots, they don't care. They're not going to fire Vrabel. They're not going to suspend Vrabel. They may not even talk to Vrabel about it. And the reality is, outside of the gossip angle of this, did you hear what Vrabel did? Vrabel and Dianna sitting in a tree. The fans don't care either. The fans do not care what you do as long as you win the division. And if Vrabel goes 3-14, those fans are going to hate Vrabel, and this will be on the list of reasons why they don't like him. The coaching staff in New England, they don't care. This is probably about the 9 millionth affair that they've seen. And I'm going to guess they probably already knew about it. And this is probably not the first reporter, journalist, female talent relationship they've seen with a coach in their lives, as unfortunate as that is to say. The players, they don't care. Nobody that matters cares. The owner's not really going to care. He's going to be a little embarrassed, but he'll be fine. The coaching staff's not going to care. The fans don't care. The players don't care. So it will have no effect on Mike Vrabel's coaching, period. That doesn't make it right. That just means that they're not going to care. Then there's Dianna. Now, again, I know The Athletic put out a statement in which they backed Dianna, saying that the photos are misleading and lack the essential context. These were public interactions in front of many people. What The Athletic is saying in that statement, as far as Dianna is concerned, they're saying, we believe Dianna. The second that, if it comes out that this isn't true, and I hate to say it, but my guess is there are more pictures from what we saw And I'll get to why I think there are more pictures from what we saw here in a second. But my guess is that The Athletic is saying, we're going to support Dianna for now. Right now, we're going to say Diana's telling the truth and that Dianna was with her hiking friends and that Vrabel was just there to say hi and they were just lounging at the pool. Just work. This is how work gets done, reporters and coaches. And then Dianna went on her hiking trip and Vrabel went back to the owners' meetings and they never kissed and they never nothing and whatever. I can promise you, The Athletic is seething behind the scenes on this. And if I was Dianna, I would not think that I'm out of the woods by any stretch of the imagination. And she's probably smart enough to know that. I worry that for Dianna, this could be the end of her career. And I think it's likely 75% that she's done. The 25% when it comes to Dianna is that the masses believe her story and choose to just let bygones be bygones. And that, or that Dianna is proven correct that no, I mean, look, Dianna, here are the 8 other people. They've all come forward. They all say that she was there and she was hiking and she just said hi to Vrabel at the pool and was wearing her bikini and interlocking fingers and hugging at the sunset in a mountain background. And that was all just, sourcing. Personally, I think that's unlikely. Because in order for a reporter to be valuable, they have to be trusted. Listen to Adam Schefter, because I had somebody in town, not going to say who, that was defending Dianna to me yesterday, was all mad at me. And they were like, you don't know what was happening there. I'll say the photos don't look good, but you don't know. Listen to Adam Schefter. And I feel like you can tell the pain in Schefter's voice because he knows how fucked Dianna is. This is from 97.5 The Fanatic in Philadelphia. This was this morning. Kudos to the hosts for bringing Adam Schefter on. They wouldn't have done this in Nashville. Kudos to the Philadelphia hosts who brought Adam Schefter on and asked him about it straight up. Here was what Schefter said this morning.
As an NFL insider, when everything is such in the news with the Mike Vrabel, Dianna Russini situation that surfaced yesterday.
No, listen, not my story. Didn't report it. Saw it like everybody else did. And I guess my thought would be, I don't know what's right. I don't know what's wrong. I feel bad for the families involved. It's unfortunate. I know both individuals. And yeah, I guess my first thought would be that they went to the families of the people involved. And, I just wish everybody the best and hope everything works out with everybody.
Damn! I mean, Schefter's like, look, it's not my story. It's not my reporting. I know everybody involved. And I love that last line where he's like, my hope would be, I think Schefter's telling you that, like, hey, he's talked to Dianna and that Dianna probably said, like, hey, we're not. Look, I got to worry about my family first. I can't worry about breaking the news of the A.J. Brown trade to the Patriots because I got to take care of. I mean, Schefter knows. He knows. You can just tell from listening to Schefter in that cut that Schefter knows, A, that what Dianna did is fucked, and B, that Dianna in general, as far as her career is concerned, she's probably fucked. Like, you can just hear it. Because in order to be a valuable reporter, you must be trusted. And a source who is also the mistress, or I should say, I guess this would be the other way around. Sleeping with a source is the number one way to lose that trust. Politicians don't have to be trusted. They just have to be liked. Musicians don't have to be trusted. They just have to play good music. Coaches don't have to be trusted. They just have to win. Players, actors, you name it. They don't need to be trusted. Reporters, They need to be trusted. FBI agents need to be trusted. That's why an FBI agent cannot sleep with somebody he's investigating, or she. Jurors need to be trusted in a trial. You have to trust them. And I think the New York Times, the parent company of The Athletic, is banking on the fact that Diana's story is going to somehow hold up and that she's not going to lose the trust of the public who, again, consumes their content. And I just don't think that's going to happen. I think that's wishful thinking. And I believe the Times' defense of Diana, because I'm a subscriber to the Times. I know a lot of people don't like the Times. I do. And I do believe that, like when Diana put the story out about Vrabel's job being safe in 2023, Joe Rexrode was staunchly defending Diana, saying, we have editors and her source couldn't have been Vrabel. And I actually believe that because I think the New York Times does have standards. And what Diana's doing, having an affair with a source, if that's what she's doing, that is not within the New York Times standards. In fact, that's why the New York Times went out of their way to say, this is not what it looks like. Because if it is what it looks like, Diana's out. So right now, I think The Athletic is saying we believe her for now. Because they're smart enough to know that either more will come out or she'll be vindicated. And when she's vindicated, they will have stuck by her. But everybody knows that knows business. You can't have your top reporter, your top insider, sleeping with sources. Does it happen? Yeah, it happens. It's unfortunate. There was a political reporter who basically got canned for having an affair with Robert Kennedy Jr. And she was covering him. And she was engaged to somebody else in the media. So it happens. But guess what happened? When it got discovered, they moved on. So what I think is likely to happen, right now the Times is hoping that this story is going to die. And that people will talk about it today, maybe tomorrow, and then there will be something in the NFL and everybody else's attention will go away and there will be nothing more that comes out. And that maybe they can tell themselves internally, hey, Diana said she was with a friend. She wasn't with Vrabel. We take her at her word. And there's nothing more that pushes us over the edge to where we have to fire her. I think that's unlikely. I think what will happen is there will be another shoe that drops. And when that shoe drops, The Athletic will put her on leave, pending a review, and then they will, quote unquote, part ways. And at that point, I don't know if Diana will be picked back up. It is unfair. By just calling a spade, it is unfair. And it is not right that in this instance, the guy, Vrabel, who, again, if we're making the assumption that they were having an affair, and it sure looks like they're having an affair, and again, I thought they were having an affair before this even came out. If Vrabel faces zero punishment professionally and Diana loses her career, that's not necessarily fair, but life's not fair, and that's the way this works. Again, Vrabel is not, I know coaching, we want to believe that everybody's got integrity and everybody's standing up and coaching is not a position of integrity. I mean, we all want our coach to be Jay Wright. We all want our coach to be that guy that, leads by example of how to be a man and shows those kids that are in college or shows the young players and everything and sets the example. But like Bobby Knight, I mean, you don't have to be a good guy to be a good coach. So that's where I think I sit, unfortunately, for Diana. As a reporter, you have to be trustworthy. If you're not trustworthy, you can't really do the job. The next thing. Am I the only person who thinks that these pictures were taken by a private investigator. Like, I can't be the only person who sits there and says, you know, these look like photos that were taken by, that there was some person that recognized Vrabel and some football fan that recognized Vrabel, that recognized Dianna, who just took out their iPhone and snapped a couple of photos. I can't be the only person who thinks that, right? That this to me looks like a private investigator took those photos. Now, I have no proof that it was a private investigator who took the photos, but there was one photo in particular, and I'm trying to get this ready so I can put this on the stream, that I should have gotten ready before the show. But there's this one picture in particular that I have now seen, and I think some of this stuff's blown up, and so this looks like the non-blown up image of the photo as I prepare this, where I look at this and I'm like, this to me looks like somebody who professionally knows what they're doing. Not somebody who's like, dude, Mike Vrabel and Dianna Russini, who used to be on ESPN, because, you know, a lot of people, you go to ESPN, you leave ESPN and they don't know where you went from there. And that looks like Mike Vrabel and Dianna Russini. Let me take out my iPhone and snap a picture. So this is the picture that I've seen that looks like it was legitimately taken. And this to me screams private investigator. If you're looking at the stream, there is this gorgeous, gorgeous mountain in the background. I mean, this thing is picturesque. And they're on the rooftop of these private bungalows, which cost, I think, $2,000 a night in order to rent out, which supposedly, I guess, Vrabel was renting out a private bungalow. It doesn't matter who was renting out. They both have money. And again, this is about them, not whatever. But just scenic, just gorgeous. And there's Vrabel almost spooning Dianna. He's got, you know, his arm around Dianna, and Dianna is, I'm trying to think of how you would describe her position. She's slumped into him like he's her big old teddy bear. Again, the distance from which this photo looks like it was taken to me makes it look like a private investigator took those photos. And I could be wrong, but that makes me think that there's probably more to this. And look, maybe, again, maybe whoever took these photos, maybe they, again, they couldn't have blackmailed them, because if they did blackmail them, Vrabel would have gone to the FBI. Because I saw that happen with Rick Pitino. I mean, I'm thinking in this instance that for whatever reason, somebody hired a private investigator on Vrabel or Russini. And in most cases, I don't think there's a lot of people out there that would care enough to hire a PI if they were having an affair who isn't one of their spouses and has something to gain. And I could speculate on which one I think it is. I think I could do that, right? If I had to guess, I'd say it's Diana's husband. If I had to guess. And the reason I would speculate that is because, like, let's think about this now strategically. Vrabel and his wife have been married forever. And Vrabel's wife understands the big leagues. Like, he was in the NFL. He's coached at Ohio State through the ranks. They were together through all of it. She was a volleyball player at Ohio State. He was a football player at Ohio State. You know, they've been through all of it. I believe if Vrabel's wife was the one that hired, again, if Vrabel was trying to hire, or if Vrabel's wife was trying to hire a PI to snoop out Vrabel and Dianna, she'd be better off keeping those photos and then divorcing Vrabel and basically saying, hey, here are the photos, and I know you're cheating on me, so let's just go ahead and get a settlement out there and be done with it. And you give me your half, and I go on my way and get to do whatever I want and leave me alone, and everybody else leave me alone. When it comes to Diana's husband, and one person says, isn't her husband rich? I believe, according to the online places, they said he was an executive at Shake Shack. If that was my wife, I mean, the way to really crush my wife, not that this would ever happen, but if I was vindictive, leaking those photos is the way to do it. Because by leaking the photos, again, I think you've wrecked Diana's career. And even if Diana's career continues, even if the New York Times decide to look the other way, which if they decide to look the other way, I will be very disappointed in the New York Times if something else comes out. Like right now, I can say, okay, New York Times, they can say we don't, but if something else pops, she's got to go. That said, if I'm Diana's husband and I am upset about being cheated on, if I feel betrayed, having this go public not only gives me a humongous leg to stand on as far as a potential divorce is concerned, but it also really, really hurts the person that hurt me. So that's where I sit on all of this. And I think, again, this was a PI. And one person into the chat said, Kelsey goes, it was either a PI or Page 6 paparazzi. Here's where I struggle on the Page 6 paparazzi. How would Page 6 of the New York Post know that Vrabel and Diana were headed to this boutique 2-hour away getaway for pure romance in the mountains of Arizona? You know, I've seen paparazzi before. We were in Costa Rica last year, and what I thought was crazy was whenever somebody was going to the beach in Costa Rica, and I didn't think we were staying at like a really nice resort or anything. I thought we were staying at a good resort. But when people would go to the beach, there would be these locals that were just sitting there that when you would leave the property, the hotel to go to the beach, they would have their phones out and they'd snap everybody. And so my guess is they snap everybody and then they send that off to TMZ or whoever. And if TMZ's like, oh my God, that's Alfonso Ribeiro, then they buy the photo from the locals. I don't know. But would they be doing that in Sedona, Arizona? Would they be doing that? One person says somebody sold the pics to Page 6, I would guess. Again, somebody had to know they were there to basically, I mean, again, this is like a tactical photo of Vrabel and Diana. This isn't like a, hey, I'm all the way over here and I'm just minding my own business, drinking my coffee out on the balcony. Oh, shit, it's Vrabel and Dianna Russini. I don't even know if you can tell that that's Vrabel and Diana because it's so far away unless you knew that that was Vrabel and Diana. Boston said Alfonso Ribeiro is a crazy pull. I was truly thinking of the most random celebrity I could think of. One person says they have to have been doing this for years, except that the owners' meeting is in different places. But yes, again, you say you think they've been doing this for years. This was me on March 22nd, 2022. Quote, I think Vrabel is banging Dianna Russini from ESPN, but I can't speculate it publicly. As you can see if you're looking at the stream to the text results there. So, the final part of this that I think has to be addressed is, as a Titan fan, I think you have every right to feel lied to and to be really upset. And I think the thing that I think is probably the most memorable moment from Diana and Vrabel in Vrabel's tenure was draft night 2023. Because if you listen to the Dianna report, and I thought they were doing it at the time, so I listened to this stuff as if, hey, this is Vrabel's mistress who's reporting the news. Dianna, for that draft night, had said on television that she was going to be in Indianapolis for the draft. Then all of a sudden, Kimberly Martin was in Indianapolis where they drafted Anthony Richardson, and Dianna was reporting live from the Titans facility. So somebody had to tip off Dianna of, hey, come here instead of Indy because we might have a big scoop for you. I promise you, ESPN is not sending out. They've got about 5 or 6 reporters. They are not sending out a reporter to Nashville, Tennessee to cover the Tennessee Titans with the 11th pick so that they can draft a guard. They just don't do that. And so somebody tipped off Dianna that the Titans might be trying to make a huge draft day trade and a huge splash. And Dianna diverted from Indianapolis to Nashville and said this on the day of the draft.
Field, I sat with Titans new GM Rand Carthon in his office to go over the mood of the building on draft eve, as well as try to get more information as to what they are going to do with that pick at 11. And he tells me they're really calm, they're prepared. In fact, head coach Mike Vrabel and him sat together for 2 hours and they set their draft board. They are ready to go for Thursday night. So what are they going to do with their pick at 11? Carthon tells me they're open to everything. They're willing to move out. They're willing to stay. They're also willing to move up. In fact, I spoke to some sources around the league, teams like the Arizona Cardinals, who have taken calls from the Tennessee Titans about perhaps trading up. Now, the player they're going for, Carthon wouldn't tell me what they're doing, but my sense is the Tennessee Titans have their eyes on a quarterback, and they're going to do everything they can to go get him.
Okay. So Dianna was like, I sat down with Rand Carthon, and Rand Carthon says they feel really good about where they are, and Rand Carthon says they could do anything. They're open to trading up, trading back, or sticking at 11. Breaking news! So what's that say? That says that on the record, Rand told Dianna nothing, which is pretty much what all the general managers say that time of the year. And then Dianna says, but my sense is they're planning a big move up for a quarterback. Who told her that? Now, at the time, there was a big issue as to how the Texans decided to draft C.J. Stroud at number 2. So C.J. Stroud was, and Charles Robinson, who lives in Houston, has reported this on the Robbie and Rex Road program. I've got the audio somewhere. Charles Robinson said that the Houston Texans' plan was to take Will Anderson Jr. at number 2 because they knew the Arizona Cardinals had Will Anderson Jr. as the top player on their board. So Arizona at 3 was going to take Will Anderson, and they knew it. So their plan was to take Will Anderson at 2. Then they were going to work out a trade with Seattle at 5, who took Devin Witherspoon. They were going to work out a trade with Seattle to move up inside the top 10 to take Stroud because they wanted to come out of that night with their quarterback and with the best defensive player in the draft, in their opinion, and pretty much everybody else's opinion, Will Anderson. Charles Robinson has said that when the Houston Texans caught wind that the Titans were working out a trade with Arizona to move up to number 3 to take C.J. Stroud, Houston decided, let's take our quarterback so that we don't let the Titans have our quarterback. And if we can't get Will Anderson, then we're just going to have to suck it up. And that's when Houston made the massive trade back up to 3 to take Will Anderson. If the Titans had completely kept their mouths shut and nobody thought that they had any interest in C.J. Stroud, I believe the Titans would have been able to trade up to 3 to take C.J. Stroud. Now, regardless of whether or not that was a blessing in disguise is a different discussion. Because it might have been, because C.J. Stroud right now looks like he sucks. But that's not really as far as, the matter at hand. The matter at hand is, Did you have a quarterback you were going up to go get? Did you have a plan? And did Dianna nix it because Mike Vrabel gave her the info because they were sleeping together, allegedly? That's the question. And as a Titan fan, you should feel wrong. Now, there is always going to be the possibility that it was the Arizona Cardinals that called Dianna and said, Tennessee is calling us trying to move up to number 3. Or that it was the Arizona Cardinals that told the Texans, hey, they're trying to move up to number 3, so if you want to get Will Anderson, you better take Stroud and then trade with us. But I don't buy that. Dianna was diverted to Nashville. She was supposed to go to Indianapolis. She didn't go to Indianapolis. She came to Nashville so that she could report on the Titans, who were, again, thinking about making a big splash on draft night. For the first half of that day on FanDuel, C.J. Stroud was favored massively to go number 3, and it wasn't until an hour before the draft that the odds flipped for Stroud to go number 2. And, I mean, we talked about that at the time, about who let the cat out of the bag. And the Titans at the time were trying to tell me, oh, no. It could have been Arizona that told Houston. Or they were going to take Stroud the whole time no matter what. Except that's not what Charles Robinson said. Charles Robinson reported Houston was going to take Will Anderson and they were going to trade back in and try to get C.J. Stroud. It was when they caught wind that the Titans were going to move to 3 to take Stroud that they decided to take Stroud and figure out Anderson later. So as a Titan fan, I think you have every right to think that your head coach put his own self-interest ahead of the football team or the plan for the organization. And one person says Rand Carthon was the spy. Now, Rand Carthon's only said positive things about Vrabel, but I would love to know what Rand Carthon thinks today, because Rand Carthon probably has a good idea where that Kaharski story came from, that he was sleeping on the plane, and it probably came from a Vrabel source. So I know that Rand has always said nice things about Vrabel, and Rand has said that he and Vrabel were, best buddies and long-lost brothers, but he also made the passive-aggressive comment at Brian Callahan's press conference when he said hunting together is not the same as hunting at the same time. There was clearly tension between Vrabel and Rand. And so I would love to know what Rand actually thinks of all of this. And again, I want to know what he actually thinks, not what he's willing to tell you, because, again, Rand is not the most honest person in the world either. Someone said, no. Mike was the good one we fired. Rand was the bad one. I'll say this. Somebody yesterday, it was actually a college coach, and I were on the phone. And he was like, so, man, the Titans screwed up on Vrabel, huh? And I was like, look, man, I know Vrabel went to the Super Bowl. I know the Titans suck, but it was time for Vrabel to go. And it was shit like this that is why it was time for Vrabel to go, when it was time for Vrabel to go. One person says, Dianna will be starting her own podcast soon and announcing time off for personal reasons. Dianna already has her own podcast. I actually went to the page this morning, Scoop City, and I was like, I wonder, did Dianna do a podcast this morning? And the answer was no. Dianna hasn't done a podcast in over a month. Let's run through some more of these. One person says, wasn't she called out a couple years ago from someone in Washington? Yes, that was the wife of then general manager Scott McCloughan. Just Google Dianna Russini, Scott McCloughan, and you'll get that story. And it makes it look like this is Diana's history. Again, we are operating in the court of public opinion. We are not operating in the court of law. We are operating in the court of public opinion. And it was my private opinion until yesterday, because I didn't feel like I had enough evidence to present this publicly. But it was my private opinion for 4 years that I thought they were doing it. And in the court of public opinion, I don't think it's looking good for old Vrabel. TDG says, Vrabel's pillow talking cost us CJ Stroud. See, I thought that the whole time. Like, I didn't think it was Rand who fucked up the CJ Stroud thing. I have always thought it was Vrabel because I have always thought that Vrabel tipped off Dianna because he loves Dianna and Dianna loves him and he wants to prop her up. And look, someone got on me yesterday in my video because I said that, hey, if Vrabel was propping up his mistress, it did work. Because less than a year after that whole thing, Dianna signed a massive contract to be the lead insider at The Athletic. And you don't become the lead insider for the New York Times if you don't have scoops and you're not noticeable and you're not on television and you're not on television if you don't have something to say. So, again, I don't know how Adam Schefter got his job. I don't think it's from boinking somebody, but it does feel like, hey, if Vrabel really, really was in there with Dianna and he really did help her career because she always had a Titan scoop. I mean, again, do you remember what we used to play on the radio show whenever Dianna would have a report? Like, again, the date of this is June 2nd, 2023 is the day that I created this sounder because that's how I label things, is by the date. Like, are you not picking up what I was putting down?
This Dianna Russini report comes directly from the desk of Mike Vrabel, most likely.
Do you know why I put in that most likely at the end of that? I mean, yes, it makes it funnier, but because you can't sue somebody when they say allegedly, most likely, I think. If I were to tell you that I know for a fact 100% that Vrabel and Dianna were doing it, they could probably sue me because I don't know that. But I feel pretty confident in what I believe about Vrabel and Dianna. Kyle says, Buck Rising said today he fully believes that they are not having an affair. Buck also misleads his listeners as much as the Titans do. I don't know if Buck goes out of his way consistently to mislead his listeners. Buck's very close with Dianna. And Buck and Vrabel, I think, get along. Buck is very close with Dianna. Just keep that in mind. I'm not. I had the opportunity to be friendly with Dianna. It was practice in July or maybe August of 2023. There were the joint practices with the Vikings. And Dianna came up to me on the practice field. And I told her, I'm like, you are in the bag for Mike Vrabel. And she's like, what have I said that's not true? She's like, people around the league all think he's a great coach. They all, it was like kind of a back and forth. And Dianna was like, have me on your show. And I was like, sure, Dianna. Like, I knew that she wasn't going to come on, but I'm like, oh, okay, Dianna. So if that was the moment there, that if I wanted to become friends with Dianna Russini, I could have. But I learned a long time ago that, and this was when I was on the radio in Louisville, and I decided, I'm like, I got two choices. I can either be friends with everybody or I can tell the truth, but you can't do both. And I've decided I'm going to tell the truth. So I'm not particularly close with any general manager, any head coach, any player. I'm not. And I feel like that gives me a certain level of anonymity to be able to tell you that I think they're fucking each other. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. If Dianna takes a polygraph and passes it, I will say I was wrong. But at this point, that's what I would need. One person says, Dianna Russini was pimping A.J. Brown to New England for the past month. Of course, we now all know the source. So I will say this. A.J. Brown is leaving the Philadelphia Eagles, and everybody knows it, and that is with or without Dianna's reporting. Because I'll say I talked to A.J. A.J. and I talked at the Super Bowl. And I'm not going to say what we talked about, but I'll just say that I have a pretty good feeling that everybody knows A.J. Brown's not going to be on the Eagles next year. So that's not something that's shocking. And the Patriots' interest in A.J. Brown, Diana's not the only one that has that info. So that is not so much, and I know in Philadelphia, they're like, do you now not buy it because of how much of the reporting was Dianna? And I'm like, no, I buy it. AJ's unhappy there, and they're sick of AJ. Just like J-Rob got sick of AJ. Like, they're sick of AJ. And they just want to get a first-round pick out of it. And so I don't really think that Dianna has anything to do there. But again, just the thought of the impropriety makes it hard for her to do her job. Joe says they had a professional photographer. So I don't know what this means when you say it's a professional photographer, if you mean like that's a PI, as opposed to somebody taking pictures with their iPhone. Because, look, I think I've got the 16 or something, but I mean, the iPhones today and the Samsung Galaxies and everything, they're amazing with how those cameras work. So if you told me this was an iPhone photo, I would be surprised, but maybe it is. One person says, do you think any Nashville media folks will talk about this? I saw Kaharski said that he was going to talk about it, but I haven't listened to what Kaharski had to say. Now, for Kaharski, this is tough because Kaharski loves Vrabel. He loves him. Just loves Mike Vrabel to the moon. And we've exposed Kaharski in the past on things where he maybe loved Mike Vrabel a little too much. And so Kaharski, though, a lot of people, when it comes to somebody they like, they can just lie. And I find that to be offensive because I don't think I'm that stupid and I don't think you're that stupid. So when people get up there and they just lie to you because it makes their friends feel better or it makes them feel better about themselves and their friends, I get very angry. But Kaharski can't do that. Like, some people can just truly ignore this subject even though it burns inside of them because it may hurt them, whether it's their friendship with Vrabel, their friendship with Dianna, their standing with their employer, whatever. They just won't touch it with a 10-foot pole. There are some people that just can't help themselves. Sometimes I'm one of those people, though I think I'm pretty good at keeping things in the right lane. And Paul cannot help himself. So I don't know what Paul said or didn't say on the Dianna thing. I hope Paul came down hard on Dianna and on Vrabel too. But for Vrabel, I'm not sure it really hurts his football coaching. Whereas I do think it hurts the credibility that Dianna Russini has. One person says the only reason to go to a rooftop is to get stoned or to fornicate. I mean, I'll just say this. Look at that view. Like that, I mean, that view is freaking gorgeous. And I'm not like a take it all in kind of guy. I do really get into it when I'm on the lake or I'm on a boat on the ocean and I can just really take it in. And I do love that. I am not a typical. Now, sometimes there'll be a sunset that is out of this world and I'm just like, oh my God. But typically I'm not a big nature guy or look at my surroundings guy or whatever. But look at that view. I mean, the gorgeous mountains, the sunset. I bet the air out there is just so nice. I'll be out there this weekend, so I'll be able to report to you. But, I mean, look, that's why you go out on the rooftop, so that you and your honey can go out there and share that intimacy of being together and being close. I mean, he is protectively hugging her. And she is enjoying, it looks like, from this angle, the protection of Big Bear Vrabel. So, with that, I don't know what everybody else is saying or what everybody else is believing or whatever. I just know this. This is a really, really bad look for Vrabel and a really, really bad look for Dianna. And I think as fans, you have a right to feel disrespected. And I know it's their lives and it's not your life. And I know your marriage is not affected by anything that Vrabel or Dianna did. But again, I go back to the reporting. I mean, to me, that was dishonest. If she was sleeping with her source, who was the head coach, who was a target of a lot of criticism and a lot of praise, that's really, really dishonest. And as a fan, you have every right to be upset. And if Vrabel, trying to get his mistress ahead, decided to leak the C.J. Stroud interest so that Dianna could be diverted from Indianapolis and come to Nashville and they could get a couple extra nights hanging out together. Again, I don't know if that happened or didn't happen, but if that is what happened, as a fan, you have every right to be upset and to feel betrayed. And as far as the personal stuff and their families and everything, that's on them. That has nothing to do with me. But I will say this. I'm trying to think of the right way to say this. I had an executive who is a very high up executive in professional sports. She's a woman. And she reached out to me. We were texting back and forth today, and she was giving her thoughts on Vrabel. And I replied to her at one point when she was texting me her thoughts on Vrabel, and I said, "You're pretty heated about this, eh?" And she was like, "Yes, because you have no idea how hard it is to be a woman in sports and have to deal with the accusations that anytime a woman has success, it's because she's sleeping with someone, especially an attractive woman." And I worked with Caroline every day for a couple of years, and I was very protective of Caroline. I told her, I said, "Hey, if somebody says something that makes you uncomfortable or inappropriate to you, you come to me about it, and I will take care of it, because I'm not going to put up with that, and I want to foster an environment where you feel like you can just do your job." I never, ever wanted Caroline to feel like because she was a woman that she had to pretend to be a sideline reporter and not be a taker. And I love the fact that she does Sirius XM radio and she's a taker. And I absolutely love Caroline with all my heart. I'm officiating her wedding on Saturday, and it's an honor that they asked me to do it. We've hung out so many times. We've hung out with our significant others. We've hung out without our significant others. We've never interlocked fingers together. And on top of that, it hurts me what Diana's actions do to the people like Caroline that do things the right way. The people that really work and they want to work hard. And you guys know Caroline, she grinds. And she's not the only one. There are hundreds and thousands of women in sports, whether it's media, journalism, whether they're on the team side of things. And when Dianna does this, it stereotypes all of them. And that's unfortunate. That's it for our show today. I do have to say, again, the drama part of this was, oh, shit. That does it for us today. Like and subscribe. Tell your friends. And by the way, shout out to Eustace Onanen and the Predators. We will have more on the Predators, I promise, tomorrow, who did go on the road and kick that ass. And let's hope that they continue when they play Utah tomorrow and finish out the road trip. That is it for us, Stillman and company. We will see everybody tomorrow live at 2.